In my video, I will be talking about my favorite flower, the famous Harlequin phalaenopsis, which I have loved since forever. I know Harlequin phalaenopsis is complicated. It's more known as the white purple spotted orchid, which is a very popular flower. It pertains to the plantain kingdom and native to Central America, North to West, South America, and the Andes Mountains. One fun fact, the vanilla bean comes from a species of orchid. The vanilla bean orchid is the only commercial grown plant and harvested orchid plant. As well, orchids can live up to 100 years. Crazy, right? That's unheard of. Alright then, on to the next slide. As I explained, the Harlequin phalaenopsis or orchid is one of the most famous orchids around the world. It's famous for its white purple spotted orchid. White purple spots in the petals. I actually liked this orchid ever since I was a little kid. I actually have one. I got it 3 or 4 years ago, and it's blossomed twice. And recently, it blossomed yesterday, actually. In fact, my mom gave me my first orchid, and I'm happy it's still around, actually. I'm surprised it's blossomed 3 times already, as its process is a bit tricky, and it's very technical. It's very technical because it doesn't do well in hot heats and very cold weather and warm weather, or cold weather. You can't water it too much, and it's very technical. Windy, like the wind messes everything up. It's very technical. You really need to do research on it, and I'm surprised it's actually blossomed 3 times for me. Right then, on to the next slide. How are orchids propagated? In the wild, orchids propagate or reproduce much the same way other plants do. They are pollinated, and the pollen or seeds spread to the other areas. When they find a favorable growing medium, they will put down the meager roots that they have and grow. On to the next slide. Titillating sex life of orchids. Flowers are all about sex. It sounds wrong, but it's true. It's funny, but it's true. If they look good and smell good, it's not to please us humans, but to better seduce their pollinators. Because most need cross-pollination, which is the transfer of pollen from flower of one plant to the flower of another of the same species, in order to reproduce. And orchids are the master of sex when it comes to the world of plants. See? That's why they're famous. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so as we see, orchids are really fascinating. They're beautiful, and they're captivating because they're just unique like any other flower. But they're like every other plant. They need pollinators, like bees pollinate plants. All right, then on to the next slide. The anatomy of an orchid. They are aerial roots that grow into the potting media but rather grow out in the air. These roots are specifically designed to grow in the air and should not be potted or worse, cut off. Have you ever felt like your orchid was looking at you? Perhaps it's because they look like our faces. Well, sort of. Our faces and orchid flowers are both bilaterally symmetrical. This means that if you divide our face and orchid's face in half from top to bottom, one side would mirror the other. Most other flowers have radial symmetry. The faces of these flowers can be sliced in any direction and still mirror each other, which is pretty unique to the orchid. As you can see the pictures, you can see the flowers. The stake helps the orchid stay upright. The nodes spike the leaves, roots, and the soil. I actually recommend you getting one. Yeah, it's really nice, and it makes you happy when you see a blossom, just to say that. But yeah, that was my presentation on my favorite plant or flower, the orchid. Thank you.